Hello everybody, welcome back to my Minecraft Beta 1.7.3 world. I'm going to be playing a little bit more today in my world called YouTube. And lots been on my mind recently, the last day and a half. I think there's a lot I want to talk about. I don't want to make this video too long, but I have some thoughts about some stuff that's been going on in the world. It is going to be kind of a, not really kind of a morbid talk, it's just going to be directly morbid. I've seen several accidents lately that I want to talk about kind of from a philosophical perspective in which people sadly passed away. Um, I'm not going to really be going into detail about these events, A, for the respect of their families and whatever, but B, that's not really supposed to be what this video is about. It's more just going to be me playing about Minecraft and talking about kind of that feeling of, existential dread that kind of comes when you hear about something like this and you think, well, that could have been me. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, but ever since I was a kid, I've always just felt like, for whatever reason, I didn't have enough time to like live my life. Like I remember when I was a little, like very very little, like probably five or younger, like feeling like I had already used up all my life, that I had grown old and that I was gonna die soon, and that you know I would sit in my room and I would worry about this so much. And I think like that's an instinct that people might not realize that they have, but I think a lot of people, more people have it than you think. Like there's this guy named Brian Johnson, and he just spends so much money and time and does all these. He's like a billionaire, and he does all these crazy medical treatments in order to try to live forever. Like that's his goal. His explicitly stated goal is that he wants to live forever. And I think that's kind of a form of this too. I mean, I think death is something that's like really hard for people to understand. It's really confusing to people. And yeah, genuinely when something happens, like several events that have happened over the last few months, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around. And that was kind of difficult for me to understand, especially as I've gone through life and I've lost some friends. I've lost some friends the last few years, and I've lost people that I love to different causes of death. But I think one thing that happens a lot is like this thought that, like, oh my gosh, like that could be me. That could be me. um I don't know if it's right to think that way, but you know death is one of those things that as a kid, like, I remember when really the first person that I ever knew that passed away, it was a girl around my age, and I remember how troubling it was to me at the time, because like it it just felt so unsettling and so troubling and so saddening, and it's a hard thing to deal with. And I think that you know part of the reason why we feel that way is because we might have an incorrect perception about what death is. I think there's a video where um, Alan Watts, his name is he was like a Buddhist guy, but he talks about how, like, a lot of times people feel like death is just, you're just gonna be basically trapped in blackness forever. And when you think of it like that, it can be pretty scary. But I think the perspective I have is, you know, when we pass away, we return to the place that we were before we were born. And maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's like impossible to wrap your mind around. I've been watching these videos recently where there's a there's a blind guy, and he talks about what he thinks about vision and what he thinks about color and what he thinks, and his answer is always just like, I have no idea, like I don't understand it. And it's not that he sees blackness, right? It's that he sees nothing. Like his optical nerve has never sent a signal to his brain. There is no visual pattern. And I think that's true of death in a sense. Like, we really, like, we have no idea what it's like to die, because if we did, we wouldn't be watching this YouTube video. But, I think that everyone, when they die, will realize that they've experienced something similar to it before. The feeling of being without a body, at least. These are my thoughts and my feelings, and I feel like, people, once they pass away, return to the God which gives them life. And I could talk a little bit more about that in future videos, and I'm not trying to say everyone needs to believe as I do, but that's like something that I've arrived at, because for me, it makes sense that if we are fundamentally, at our core, eternal beings, right? Just stay with me here. If we're fundamentally eternal beings, and we existed before we were born, we exist after we are born, then the idea of not existing, it seems so contrary to our very nature that it could seem, so novel and so, terrifying in a way. And granted, from an evolutionary perspective, it also makes sense why we would fear death. But really, what makes more sense? Just take two situations in the abstract and say, situation A, you've always existed and you will always exist. Or B, there was a point in time at which you didn't exist, and that's going to happen again. I feel like it makes more logical sense to me. Now, granted, this is as someone who clearly exists. So, maybe I'm not making the greatest argument here. But it seems to sit with me better that maybe part of the reason why death is so confusing and so troubling is because it's kind of like a fish out of water to us, right? Like, we were meant to always exist. We were meant to always, be alive. Even so far that the concept of being alive is kind of losing its meaning, because there is no such thing as, like, death. That's what I think. And this is kind of rambling, whatever, but it troubles me when I hear, like, things that could happen to me, like, especially with these aviation disasters, because, I think the people that pass away in these are completely normal people. Sometimes you hear about things like, mass casualty events, but they're in a situation that you never would be in. And so while the grief for everyone is the same, it's not any lessened just because you would never be in that situation. Maybe it doesn't quite feel as much of an immediate danger to you, It doesn't feel like that could be me, like, if I hear about a plane crash in another country, I feel very sad for the people, but I also don't typically feel like I could have been on that plane. I think, well, in my country, in the United States, we have all these safety standards and whatever. But when it happens, in the U.S., and I could have feasibly, like, I don't, it's not infrequent that I fly, and it's just so, and you see the people who have lost loved ones or who passed away, and they're normal people who live the same life as me, basically. And that's something that can be really troubling, So anyway, I just wanted to talk about this video a little bit, and hopefully it can give a little bit of comfort, feeling like death is something that's hard to understand, but maybe that's because it's foreign to our very nature, you know? That's kind of the conclusion that I've arrived at. Same thing with time, you know? Oh, skeleton. Like, why does it feel so weird to age? You know, I don't think we were meant to. Like, some part of us expects to live forever. Looks like I have to light up my base a little better. I don't know how there's 3 skeletons all in that area. Did I get my pickaxe? Yeah. I think I got everything important. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today's video. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Do you guys have existential dread when it comes to death? How do you deal with that? How do you think about it? Because I feel like I have come to peace with it over my life, you know? I've lost friends, I've had friends pass away, and instead of thinking that could happen to me, I feel like, you know what? If it did happen to me, I'd be grateful for the life that I did have, you know? I had an amazing life. Like, you know, not to be so morbid, but like, it's possible that people are watching this video, you know, and it wouldn't be my expectation nor my hope, but it's possible that people are watching this video, you know, if I've passed away. And that's weird to think about, you know? But I don't know, like, I've come to peace with it. I've had a happy life, and I love my life, and, you know, I think death is as natural as birth. So, could happen at any time. Really could happen at any time. And what's sad to me about the Brian Johnson case is that he feels like he's desperately trying to control something that we have no control over, and really, you know, in my perspective, we're not meant to have any control over it, right? Like, God has appointed unto all men a time that, you know, they exit the mortal existence. Their body and their spirit separate. And I think, you know, while it is, you know, I'll say this, right? I loved 6th grade. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. But also I had to move on from it, you know? I had to go to junior high, and then I had to go to high school, and then I had to graduate high school. And now I'm in college, you know? I'm married. And my life is way better now than it was in 6th grade. I have more fun. I have more freedom, you know? I'm a man now. And even though I loved 6th grade, I feel like it's okay to move on. And I think when my time comes that it's time for me to return to the God that gave me life, I think I'll be okay with it, you know? I hope I will be. And there's a really good song by Don Williams where he talks about, like, if all I get is all I've got, you know? If the good Lord says, you've had your shot, you know, and I'm kind of testing my knowledge of the lyrics here. I didn't really plan to recite it, but he basically says, like, if he died tomorrow, you know, he wouldn't be able to say anything to God but thank you. Like, at the end of the day, you know, maybe you'd be disappointed, maybe you'd be like, oh man, you know, I wish I could have spent a little bit more time down there with my family, but at the end of the day, you're going to be happy, you know, too. That's what I think. So, anyway, kind of rambling, but it's been on my mind. Wanted to talk about it. So this hasn't really been as much of a Minecraft video, just kind of been wandering around. Let's collect some wood, some wool here for the floor in my tower, but let me know what you guys think, and have a great day. I hope you guys can live today with gratitude. Be grateful. Be grateful for the blessings that you've received. Be grateful that you're alive today and that you have the chance to experience, you know, a little bit more of this mortal world before we move on, because one day you will. That's the other thing too, right? We're all gonna die one day. We're all gonna die. It's gonna be, you know, at a time when we don't know, in a way we don't know, but it's gonna happen. So all we can do is be grateful for the time we have to love the people we love, and in my view, to prepare to meet God and prepare to see Him again. Which, by the way, if you're worried about that, He is the most loving guy you've ever met times a billion. Like, I found myself thinking this one time, like, oh man, if only God were like, whoever is the most loving person that you know, if you were only merciful like Him, like, oh my gosh, He's way more merciful than Him. Like, come on, man, He's literally God. Like, anyway. So let me know what you guys think, and have a great day.